So this is CardGamesTV1 Podcast, episode 14, Hatchhyack and the Internet of Things. So, playing around with my Hatchhyack deck, doing test hands, and all that good stuff. One of the things I would definitely like to do, I like to play the game more than than actually just only doing test hands, but for now, the best I can do is test hands more than anything. Granted, we do have untap, which is useful to a certain degree. It can always be better. But yeah, the fact that I got some of my new cards for my Hatchhyack deck, so upgraded the deck for the real life, NRL versions. Obviously, I created different Hatchhyack decks. So this podcast, this episode will be, for my Hatchhyack players, but also for other things that have been going on the internet. A bit of my popularity has been because of Hatchhyack, for example. So obviously, Hatchhyack is a popular deck leader, which is cool. I'm a fan, obviously. Different variants of the deck I've been working on. As a Hatchhyack player, for us Hatchhyack players, we're always looking for the, optimal build, right? Always looking for the final form of Hatchhyack, or at least for the time being, right? For that time frame, for the format, for the year and whatnot. So, sorry. So for me, as a Hatchhyack player, I'm looking for the final form. The final form is a Hatchhyack deck where your opponent can't attack at all, right? Any Hatchhyack player should want that. It's part of why you play Hatchhyack, is reducing your opponent's ability to attack a lot. So if your opponent deck, or if the format or the game itself gets to a point where people can play more and more free stuff, more big stuff that can attack more than once, then yeah, we got to get to the point as a Hatchhyack player to prevent all of that. Make it where your opponent can't attack at all. So obviously, there was a time where you negate 1 or 2 attacks a turn, was good enough, right? Because that used to be just a leader swing, and sometimes you didn't even have to negate the leader swing. You could either out combo it or just take it, right? But then when it came to a battle card that might have double strike or triple strike, that you definitely negated, right? So you didn't have to negate as much, I'll say a year ago. But ever since, more cards been coming out cheaper, certain leaders can ramp now. We got a Kale ramp, so just imagine a whole bunch of definitely going to make a whole bunch of Universe 6 cards, old cards, new cards, more relevant, more playable. I've been toying around with using some red Universe 6 in the Kale deck. I might make a yellow one eventually, because there are yellow Universe 6, or a mixture of all three, red, yellow, blue. A mixture of red and blue is, obviously something you can toy with. The idea of making her kind of like an invoker deck, because of the fact that you can ramp really easy, and if you have red and blue in the deck, then you can play Catastrophic Blow. So I made a Catastrophic Blow version of Kale, because of the fact that, well, it's easy to ramp blue, right? The part of the deck strategy is ramping blue, but you're not limited to the color. And then the fact that there are Universe 6 red cards, you can put them in there, so you got access to red and blue. So why not play a Catastrophic Blow strategy where you're trying to, finish the game off with multiple copies? Granted, can't play multiple copies in a turn, but sorry, playing 1 per turn, helps. Especially when your opponent's at 2 life, you got 2 Catastrophic Blow in your hand, you play 1, you survive a turn, Topo, because you got access to stuff like Topo, right? And, and Hatchhyack, right? Because the leader's blue, you can play Hatchhyack for free, right? Energy doesn't mean shit when you're playing Hatchhyack, right? I said Hatchhyack. Yeah, well, it is Hatchhyack. Baby Hatchhyack. Gotta be real specific. Baby Hatchhyack, right? And then get that extra turn, and then drop the extra Charismatic Blow and win. So I wouldn't be surprised that particular strategy becomes the strategy for Kale. On top of the fact, I was trying to do the Tragedy Overground thing with it at first because I'm a fan of the card. And the sooner you can play that card, the better, right? It's a very powerful card. Why wouldn't you want to play it sooner than later? Hatchhyack, the Tragedy Overground build, can't ramp to it fast enough, right? But it's there as an option. So it's there as like if the game drags too long, at least it's there. So if you get to like 9 energy, bang, drop the Tragedy Overground, just turn the duel around from, especially if it's taking too long. Because the only reason it will take the match will take long as a Hatchhyack player, other than, oh, it's Hatchhyack, obviously duels drag out, it's the fact that your opponent is equally as defensive. Decks that aren't as defensive as Hatchhyack, the duels don't tend to last that long. You know, aggro, you know, like, so in other words, if the deck is very aggro, more aggro, less defense, less control, then, you know, the duels tend to not last too long. Because you're constantly being attacked and you constantly have to deal with it, right? But if you're going up against a defensive deck, then it's just two walls fighting each other, basically, right? Two immovable objects, you know, trying to fight. It's like, I'm not doing nothing, you're not doing nothing, I'm not doing nothing, you're not doing nothing. Like, and when we do attacks, they're always getting negated block or something. So it's like, so yes, so essentially it becomes a mirror match. So I've been in some scenarios like that where it felt like, it feels like I'm playing against another Hatchhyack player because their deck is just as defensive as my deck. They're negating attacks, I'm negating attacks. They're negating attacks, I'm negating. So it's like we're not going anywhere. It's just a matter of who runs out of negates, basically. Who runs out of the ability to defend ultimately ends up being the winner, right? But as a Hatchhyack player, you want to be the ultimate defense, right? So you want to be in your final form. So right now I'm just looking at my opening hand, seeing what I want to do with it. So, you know, talking while doing test hands. Like I said, yeah, because there's questions, you know, things on the internet, people talking about me and saying things as if I said them, but I never said them. I made different variants of Hatchhyack, yeah, because there's different ways you can play Hatchhyack. So obviously, just like I made different variants of Boma and many other decks, different variants. But, you know, of course, it's a pretty big deal for people to see, you know, anyone try use different colors in Hatchhyack other than blue. Even though this ain't the first time I did this, this is the second time I did this, where, well, maybe the third time. Anyway, don't remember. I made so many decks, right? That you know, I just revisited Hatchhyack because we got a lot of new, you know, unisons that had like really good effects. I'm like, yeah, I definitely would like to play with those in Hatchhyack because they're really good effects. And Hatchhyack alone, you know, the thing that's funny is that some people get a little confused. Some people understand, most people don't. Is that it's like Hatchhyack by itself, right? By itself, regardless of whatever else you put in the deck, by itself, it's a floodgate, right? It's you can build anything you want with the Hatchhyack leader, right? Granted, you're restricted to black battle cards. That's that is unfortunate, but that's it's a price you have to pay for using Hatchhyack, right? For playing this leader, that's a price you have to pay, where you can't play red, green, yellow, blue, battle cards, but you can play unisons, extra cards that aren't, leader specific, like your leader has to be yellow for you to use those cards, right? Obviously. But I'm gonna keep this Goku Adventure Begins. I'm gonna keep this I'm not gonna play Power Burst turn 1, so no, I'm gonna keep both the Goku Adventure Begins because I definitely wanna have that engine. Keep the Gogeta Prismatic Burst. And at any given, and I put the rest of these cards. So it's a Toa, Demon Realm Scientist. Actually, that's supposed to be the Bardock, which I would have kept it. The Bardock Unison, the 2-drop Super Saiyan 4 Prismatic Burst Bardock or something. And I have a Power Burst with Khalifa on it, the Khalifa Art 1 instead of the Master Roshi 1, and Dr. Leche Departed. Put those away, right? I want to go with my turn 1 strategies. I know sometimes I've seen recently somebody play one of my Hatchhyack builds, and he played it wrong, but it just proves the point. Is like the deck did well, it's just the player did not do well. The player literally had a 4-star ball in their hand, and instead of using it to combo, right, because they only needed 5k to stop their opponent's leader swing to their leader, they instead, alright, that hand wasn't better. Instead, they used a good card, which they should have kept, which was Descent Shenron, negative energy explosion. They should have kept that, because that they would have need that, because that was a defensive card. That's a blocker. It's a 20k barrier blocker with spirit boost. And from right, he had the unison, right? Which unison? Yeah, he eventually played Raditz, and yeah, he eventually plays Raditz. So it's like those would have comboed very well together. You know, you could stop 4 attacks per turn with that. But like I said, it's on the player. Like, I can't control. Like, he had the tools. He had good cards in his hand. I saw his hand, and I was like, oh yeah, he could do this, he could do that. But he didn't do any of those things. He made different decisions. Not so great. I'm like, okay, those decisions aren't that good. But that's okay, you know what I mean? Okay as in, like, well, that's okay. I mean, like, you know, everybody doesn't play the same. A lot of people like the idea of everyone playing the same, but not everyone plays exactly the same. So it's like, he made decisions that I would not have made. Turn 1, he charged one of his 1 energy negates. I would not have done that, considering what else he had in his hands. Like, nah, there's lots of other cards you could have charged turn 1. Like, if he kept that negate, that would have made a huge difference in the game. And then the other thing is, he wasn't trying to do that much damage. He was too focused on what his opponent was doing, like the battle cards his opponent was playing. He was playing against the Bardock Rainbow deck. He was too focused on, you know, his opponent's battle cards that he was actually directing attacks towards them instead of ignoring them. That's the whole point of, like, Hatchhyack. Well, the reason I play Hatchhyack and the purpose of it is that my focus since set 1 was always to focus all my attacks to my opponent. Every turn matters, and especially turn 1, turn 2 are the most crucial turns, because those are the turns to your opponent are the most vulnerable. Turn 1, turn 2. Unfortunately, Hatchhyack, since you can't start going, you know, attacking your opponent with your leader at, you know, turn 1, turn 2, you have to wait to turn 3 before you start swinging with the leader. That's why a 2-drop unison is useful. 1-drop unison would be kind of nice, right? Well, we kind of do. We have some battle cards we could play. Unisons we could play turn 1, so that we can swing on turn 1, then change it on turn 2 to play something different. Then turn 3, you know, go from there. So there are some options. I'm not saying there aren't options. There's some options, right, of stuff we could play turn 1, turn 2 to try to do some damage. One of the things I like to do before, I don't have it in the deck anymore, but it was the idea of, alright, so let me charge this card, tap it, play the Goku Adventure Begins, right, and go get the ball. So I like to do is have Goku making an entrance, use it to negate my opponent's attack more. Like, this is just going to be a leader swing, and just negate the leader swing with that, so I could get that 5k body on board. And then turn 2, charge an energy, do the leader's effect and all, then attack with the Goku, then Champa the Goku, so that way it's 15k double strike, so that way at least on turn 2 I can do 2 damage to my opponent. And then hopefully on turn 3 the idea is to do 2 more damage, so that way at least I would have dealt 4 damage, right? Because the first 4 damage is the easiest, and I want to do them within the first 2 turns of the first 2 turns, technically 3, right? Yeah, because turn 2 is when you do the first double strike, and then turn 3 is when you try to do more, either 2 or 3 damage, you know, to try to catch up, right? And that's the thing is with Hatchhyack, you got to try to catch up on turn 3. Other decks that I play, yeah, as soon as turn 1, I can do like between 2 to 4 damage or more, depending on what build I'm using. 2 to more damage. Like, all I need is a Bodyguard Legic and a Champa and a leader swing, right? You know, Champa the leader swing, so that's double strike right there, so that's 2 damage, and then attack with Bodyguard Legic, and that's 3. Just those 2 cards, right, is enough to do 3 damage on as soon as turn 1. But most people don't even do stuff like that. Like, they don't try to, you know, double strike immediately on turn 1, you know, and then turn 2 try to maybe do 2 2 to 3, maybe 4 damage extra on top of that on turn on turn 2, right? So that way they could do at least a total of 6 when the opponent is least protected, right? Least defenseless. But they have the least amount of energy to be able to save some for negates. Because turn 1 sometimes people play multicolored, so turn 1 they put a multicolor in rest mode, right? So they don't have an energy for negate. So bang, hit them as hard as you can, as fast as you can, right there. Turn 2, if they drop a 2-drop unison, again, you're tapped out. Boom, take advantage of that. But once they get to turn 3, they might just keep playing 1 and 2 drops and keep 1 energy up. So it'll be harder to go in on them. Also, in that situation, with once there's 3 or more energy in play, it's going to be hard to do damage. Not impossible, just going to be harder, I should say, to do damage, which is why I always try to take advantage of turn 1, turn 2, which is why I created the X hit combo strategy idea, which launch players use, obviously. The ability to try to do as much damage as turn 1. The King Vegeta deck try to do the same thing. Turn 2 kill. We kept hearing the Dark Broly, not Dark Broly, Broly BR, the Red Broly, how it tried to kill in turn 2 and stuff like that. But I was doing that stuff, since like starting since set 3. That's when we got the Bodyguard Legend, so it was easy to start playing stuff for free and start, doing some damage. But then when we start getting some newer, better toys like Arrival plays and Nappa, Super Combo, stuff like that, they started opening up more and more avenues. And of course, Overwhelm, definitely Overwhelm added to it. Even before like Nappa, Super Combo, or Arrival and stuff like that, just getting Bodyguard Legend and getting Overwhelm already added to the ability to do extra damage on turn 1 with the right right leader and right strategy. So I got my 4-star ball, right? And then you charge, take the top card of your deck, put it under the leader, mill, draw. And so I got some materials for my Gogeta. So that's a good start. I got 3 cards here that I can definitely combo off. I got the 4-star ball, I got the Dr. Leche, which you always want to combo and get it to the drop, and Fu, which you definitely want in the drop. So there's 2 cards that I want in the drop because they work in the drop, and then 4-star ball, and I got the Goku on the field to add it back to my hand. Something pretty good. Turn 1. Let's say my opponent in my turn, opponent swings with leader, bang, use Dr. Leche, stop that attack. Let's say they get a battle card on the field and it's 15k and they swing to my leader, right? Bang, I use Fu and 4-star ball. Bang, now I'm 20k. I stop that. Bang. I can get the 4-star ball back. The other 2 cards, I want them in the drop so I can use them later. So all working current plan, and I still have 8 life right now. Right, my opponent ends their turn. My turn. Untap, I draw. I just drew a Champa. Obviously, save that for later. I charge. This is Time Agent Vegeta. So charge Time Agent Vegeta. Drop the pay 1 to drop the 2nd Goku Adventure Begins. Right, use the first one to add the 4-star ball from the drop to the hand. I'm not trying to thin out my deck, so I'm going to go grab a 4-star ball from the deck. Of course, I can have 2 4-star balls, but I'm not going to keep grabbing from my deck the 4-star balls. I'm just going to obviously keep grabbing them from the double checking. There was only 1 in the deck, which means the other 2 are in my life. So now I know annoyings have to battle. So now I got 2 4-star balls in my hand, and 2 of them are in my life. See, there's some knowledge there, something to keep into account for later on. My Super Saiyan 4 Broly Unison is under my leader right now. Now I activate my leader's effect, take the top card of my deck, which is E Supreme Kai, mill my Power Burst, and draw Power Burst. Alright, so I got to negate 2 4-star balls, so I can potentially out combo some attacks. I got Champa, I got Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta Prismatic Burst in my hand, so all I need is a Goku and a Vegeta, so that way I can burn my opponent on turn 5 for 1 damage. So Now this is just turn 2, bang bang, don't do anything, right? That's the thing, until turn 3, there's not going to be no attacks from me. Right now I could go double strike, I could attack with one of my Gokus, pay an energy and use Champa to do double strike damage to my opponent, but I'd rather save it for when I awaken my leader so that I could be 30k double strike, swing at my opponent's leader, even though 15k double strike might be enough for it. If I throw in the 4-star ball, bang, would be enough to potentially get that at double strike to go through. But in that process, I put myself in a position where I could potentially take a hit. So I'd rather wait to start doing that damage. Plus, I don't want to, if I'm going up against a aggro deck, I don't want to give my opponent any hand advantage, right? So let me get back to talking. So let me put these cards away. So you get the idea. Yeah, I was right. 2 4-star balls in my energy made my life. All right. So I was saying, it's like we're trying to do, you know, next level shit with Hatchhyack, right? So being defensive, right, is something we want to do. Right? We want our defense to be perfect. That's why I started using the Deadly Defender Goku with the 4-star ball strategy, so that way we can keep them out on the field a little bit longer. So instead of trying to combo to try to protect our leader, we try to combo to protect our Deadly Defender instead. Sorry, Deadly Defender instead. And if our opponent manages to, you know, just be too strong for us to out combo, then at least it's our Deadly Defender that was being attacked, not our leader. So, you know, there's that situation. Because sometimes I try to, especially with the 4-star balls, I was trying to use it to help defend my leader. But there'll be times where I won't have enough to you know, to out combo. So then I would end up taking a hit, right? So instead, that's why I was like, well, I'd rather have the Deadly Defender then. You know, Deadly Defender actually is a good card in this deck and actually would work. Even the person I saw using one of my Hatch builds, he was able to, you know, get some good use out of Deadly Defender. So it's like, so he did use it right. I mean, could have tried to use it a little bit better, but he did good enough. The fact that it was able to absorb 2 hits before before it left the field is like, yes, that's what it's supposed to do. That's what it's supposed to do. So at least he used that right. But I think he got another one in the door, you know, after that turn, or here he had one in his hand but didn't play it or something. I think what it was, well, I mean, I think he eventually ended up playing Raditz Unison, which wasn't a bad idea. But it's just the fact that, you know, probably didn't have to play the Unison. He probably could have played the Deadly Defender instead. So that's the thing. Now, one thing I definitely want, like if I had a wish list, like something to come out on, you know, spoiled, you come out in the next set or something, or come out of some type of expansion set or something, would be a way to bring back 3-drop or less black battle cards from the drop. That would be awesome. Some way I can just keep bringing Deadly Defender back over and over again. That would be awesome. Because like I said, Deadly Defender does a good job. It's good. It's just keeping on the field can be hard. Not impossible, just hard. That's why we have the Unison, the 2-drop Bardock, Super Saiyan 4 Bardock Unison Prismatic Burst. So we can draw, and then we swing if you awaken the leader, of course, because if you're playing a black build, draw with the leader. Or even if you're not playing black build, as long as you awaken, then you have access to the leader's draw ability from swinging. So you swing with the leader, you use the Unison ability, you're drawing 2 cards every turn, and you're using the 4-star balls, so you greatly increase the chances of keeping Deadly Defender on the field. If they, you know, if we get some more cards. The ultimate thing is, for now, the ultimate thing is if we can get more stuff that can help us keep Deadly Defender on the field longer, then that would be like our, you know, perfect defense, as it were. So right now, you know, he definitely puts in work. Because Because imagine having two of them in play. Like, it'd be nice if I could just like get cheat two of them out. Like, have a card that, you know, I can play that lets me bring out two, you know, deadly defenders out in the same turn, right? Their skills are negated until the end of turn, right? Which is okay because I only need them on my opponent's turn for their permanents, right? So I'll take advantage of that. So it'd be kind of cool to have something like that in the future. So, like I was saying, you know, perfect defense is what we're looking for when it comes to Hatchhyack. Then, you know, board control. Like, it's not enough to just stopping attacks or making it hard for our opponent to attack. We also got to get rid of threats. We got to get rid of things that are problems. So these are like the two main things you try to deal with, which is ironically this doesn't just apply just to Hatchhyack. Obviously, every deck wants perfect defense, perfect offense, and, you know, board control, right, and hand control, right, the ability to just control everything and burn, right. So we want all of it. But pretty much, you know, all those things I want in Hatchhyack, right? Hatchhyack already does a good job of minimizing my opponent's you know, attacks. So that's already a factor right there. Already helps in that regard. So it's very defensive in that regard. The next step would be to be able to have the ability to easily get rid of unisons, easily get rid of battle cards every turn. You know, so reusable effects come into factor, which is why I look towards unisons to play in Hatchhacks. Yes, I would like them to be black, right? So that way it would be just energy-wise, it'd be more efficient that way. If we get more and more black cards that can do the stuff we want to do, like more black unisons, they could do the stuff we could do. I think about the fact that I made the red build, and in the red build you have the 2-drop Piccolo Junior, you know, unison, for the fact that you +1 and draw. But then Bandai gave us a Bardock 2-drop where you +1 and draw. So now I don't have to use a 2-drop of any color, right? Blue, red, yellow, whatever, to have a 2-drop where I +1 and I draw, because they gave us a 2-drop that's black that +1s and draws. Now granted, these other ones have other abilities that, you know, are just as useful, like the Piccolo Junior unison has the auto where your opponent plays a counterplay, KO battle card 15 card or less, and we all know how useful that is. Like I said, board control. These are the reasons why I'm using these cards. I understand some people don't like the ratios, but like, oh, too many unisons, because their complaint mostly is because of combo power. But the thing is, you shouldn't be in a position where you have to combo. Like, I understand if you want to combo offensively, well, that's where the 4-star ball should help in that regards. But logically, your main concern should be defense. It should always be defense. As long as you're not taking hits, but your opponent is, that's you playing the game right. I keep seeing people playing the game wrong because they're so focused on trying to waste cards from their hands to stop attacks, and it's like, but why not use blockers? Preferably blockers you can use over and over again. You know, always look for renewables, right? Renewable effects, right? Permanent effects, reusable effects, endless effects. Like every card game that I play, I'm always looking for stuff like that. I do that in Magic. Always looking for cards that, like artifacts and enchantments and creatures and lands. These are cards that stay on the field. You don't use them and they go to the graveyard. They stay on the field, so you can keep using them. So that's why in Hatchhyack, for example, or in this game in general, I'm always looking for stuff that I can keep using. That's why when Planet M2 came out in set 3, I thought, oh, this is awesome. It's something I could play as soon as turn 1. So as soon as the game starts, I could immediately play it, right, for 1 red energy. And I can tap it to reduce my opponent's leader's, my opponent's leader by power by 5k. It's almost like I comboed 5k. So the whole idea, right, is to always just make sure that your stuff is stronger than your opponent's stuff. That way you can deal them damage. So if I play Planet M2, you know, I don't have to combo, you know, 5k from my hand every time I swing. You know, that's free 5k. That's why when they created what's his name, Frieza Embrace, Death Embrace, Frieza's Death Embrace. That was such an awesome card. I'm like, oh shit, that's awesome. So for every red you pay, basically it's a mana sink, right? So for every red you pay, that's how much you can weaken your opponent's leader. That was a powerful effect. And of course it works good with the cooler leader, and I'm a fan of cooler, so that was a thing. So, and you know, I do like mill as a win con, right? Because it's hard to defend against mill and burn. That holds true in Magic as it does in Dragon Ball Super. So obviously I lean towards those things that are harder for my opponent to stop or defend against. So pretty much unstoppable win cons is what I definitely look for. That's why stuff like OTKs and FTKs, you know, I'm always looking to find and figure out how to do an OTK and FTK. Right now in Magic, I have this, you know, infinite strategy, this way of dealing infinite damage or gaining infinite life, and you know, I'm trying to do infinite life, or at least the ability to, you know, I'm trying to add rejuvenate engines into decks. So I'm still like working on it, on the concept, trying to get it to work right, preferably with black cards, so that would be easier to splash into a lot of decks. There was a unison I was trying to use, but somebody pointed out that it was errata, but the image of the card I have was not errata. It wasn't the errata version of the card, so I couldn't use that unison the way I wanted to. It still can be used, just not the way I wanted to. It's like, it doesn't work with my lead with Hatchhyack. So that was a thing, but it still was useful regardless. But it's like, I want to rejuvenate. So stuff like that. Always looking for ways to, you know, increase life. I had the idea of adding a life gain into this game. Of course, the inspiration, you know, comes from like Magic and stuff like that, since this game copies off of Magic. But you know, ultimately, you know, I want to add life gain to Hatchhyack. I want to add, you know, the ability to make it where your opponent just can't attack at all. Any other, you know, more floodgate abilities, like more effects that makes it harder, because people already struggle with Hatchhyack. You know, some people joke about that, like, oh man, it's already bad enough, but then you add all this extra shit. Like, yes, that's the point. You're not supposed to make the game easier and fair and balanced and all that bullshit for your opponent. It's supposed to make it hard. That's how you win. You win because you have the advantage. You win because you can do what your opponent can't do, right? It makes no sense that you and your opponent both can punch each other in the face and knock each other out, right, in a fight. Easily. Just, I punch you in the face, you get knocked out. You punch me in the face, I get knocked out. Easy. Without any, you know, extra effort or anything, right? Right? That'd be bullshit. But that's what most people want. Balance, fairness, that it's like, no. I wanted that you punch me in the face, it barely hurt me. I punch you in the face and knock you out. That's what I want. I want the outcome where I have the advantage. We both try to do the same thing, but what I do is better. That's what I want. That's the way it's supposed to be as a player. This is why we talk about skill and talk about, you know, tech cards and spice and this, that, and there. And we mention all these things. We're always looking for the ability to do what other people can't do, right? We want to do what other people aren't doing. That's why it's like, if I use 20 unisons in a deck, that's not a problem for me, but it's a problem for a lot of people. It's like, okay, y'all don't play the way I play. That's obvious, but don't look down on the way I play as if the way I play doesn't work. It works. You just don't know it works because you haven't tried it. You haven't even, you haven't gotten to the point where you can make it work. Because here's the thing, if you can't make 20 unisons work, well, that's a you problem. You can't make it work. But I'm just fine making it work. Now, the magic number is 12. 20, I agree that it's not necessary for anybody else to do, but I can justify 12. You can knock it down to 9. That's if you're using an ultimate and you're trying to keep the deck at 50. You can knock down your unisons down to 3 copies of each, so 9 unisons. But I still can justify why you have to have 3 different unisons. Preferably, a 2-drop, maybe a 1-drop, a 3-drop or 4-drop, and a 4 or 5, right? Because the idea is early game is turn 1, turn 2, mid game is turn 3 and 4, and late game is 5 and above. So the unisons are for each of those three phases of the game: early game, mid game, and late game. That's why you hear stuff about, you know, certain decks being mid range or mid game strategy or late game strategy or early game strategy. You know, it's like, yeah, there's early game, mid game, and late game, beginning, middle, and end. The unisons that I put serve those purposes. A unison to start the game off with, a unison to transition into mid game, you know, during the middle of the game before the game is close to ending, and then an end game unison, which usually is a finisher. Most people don't even realize that. Most of my, you know, unisons that are like 4 or 5, 4 drops, 5 drops, they tend to be finishers, or at least they lead to a finisher, right? They lead to a strategy for you to win the game. But people just want to complain about the number, like, oh, 12, 20, too many unisons. Like, y'all don't even understand why there's that many. And, you know, instead of trying to understand the reasoning behind it, or even asking what the reason is behind it, people want to assume they know everything. They want to assume that they're smarter than they really are. And I'm gonna say it just like that. They think they're smarter than they really are. It's like, no, you can't look at my deck list and think you know everything. You don't. You don't know what I do know. Then there's some people who will say like, oh, I don't think you actually tried these decks. Yeah, that's what you think, but you don't know. You don't know because you didn't ask. And most people who do ask me, I tell them like, yeah, this deck I tried. You know, I played it like a couple times, or this deck I don't need to play test or try it because it's just an upgrade of another deck that I already did try. So I already tried a deck like this already, right? I already played a build similar to this. This is just slightly different than that, and that's it. It's just slightly different. There's probably like 3 or 4 different cards, and the cards aren't that drastic. They're just better versions of whatever existed before. So if all I did was change, you know, the negates or I went from a double strike battle card to a triple strike battle card, it's not much of a difference there. It's just, okay, one does 1 damage more. I'm still gonna play the deck the same way I played it before when I only had the double strike, but now I have triple strike. That's the only difference, right? So that's why it's a little weird that people don't even have that train of thought. Like maybe he's played so much that, you know, he can build so many decks because he has so much experience, but don't even think that. They just want to think automatically that it's like the way you start every time you play a deck. It's always from the beginning. Everybody acts like you reset. You start from the beginning, brand new deck. You gotta learn it from scratch. It's like, no, every deck, even every meta deck out there is the same. Some people even refer to like Icarus. That's the new thing, right? People playing Icarus as the lesser version of Mecha Frieza. It's like the strategies, a lot of the cards in the decks are pretty much the same, and just slightly different. So it's, you know, it's similar, but not exactly 100% the same, obviously, right? But it's like, well, that's the whole point. It's like, yeah, you're using the same strategy over and over again, right? KO is just a new Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta leader, essentially. It's just a new blue ramp. That's it, right? You have SS4, which is, you know, like, think about it. We had Super Saiyan 3. That was a hell of a ramp. Then we had Goku Black. That was decent, but not the best ramp. Super Saiyan 3, Goku, obviously the better ramp. And, you know, leader. And then, what else we had? I think we had one other ramp leader. I'm thinking. Nope, I think it's just those two. And then we got Super Saiyan 4, Goku, leader for ramp. And then now we got KO for ramp, right? And you notice all these leaders I mentioned, they're all blue, right? And these are blue ramp leaders. These are leaders whose, you know, purpose is to help you have more energy than your opponent, so you can play bigger, better things than your opponent. You know, and blue does have some really good things, right? Android 17, Turn the Tide. You know, Bandai made sure you couldn't play that in KO. They made sure of that. But there's tons of other good cards, you know, 7 drops, 8 drops, 9 drops, right? you can play in KO and other strategies. Like you could play the catastrophic blow strategy, right? So that's the thing. You know, I'm not gonna be surprised to see different versions of KO. I mean, I already started creating different versions. That already told you that she's very versatile. Like, you know, there are limits, granted, but that's the whole point. They limited her and made it where it's like you got to use Universe 6 battle, like, you know, Universe 6 battle cards to reduce how broken she is, to reduce it. But we're still going to try to break her, right? We're going to bend her, maybe not break her, but we'll bend the shit out of her to get the outcomes and results we want, which is multiple wins, right? Multiple W's, so we can, you know, top events and all that other good stuff, or at least just brag that we have multiple wins, right? Like I said, you know, this is Hatchhyack and the Internet of Things, you know, stuff that I noticed on the internet, stuff that's going on in the community, plus, you know, Hatchhyack. You know, there are people who play Hatchhyack, who are a fan of Hatchhyack. Some people ask me for some advice on how to deal with certain matchups or certain. It's funny how it was just color based, like how you deal with blue, blah blah blah. Like Hatchhyack struggles with blue, and it's like the color blue, like you have to be a little bit more specific, or boo as in Majin Buu. What are you talking about, right? Jokingly, obviously they're referring to the color blue, but it's like Hatchhyack shouldn't struggle with blue if you know, because blue is a defensive color. So they are pretty much your equal. Hatchhyack and blue decks are pretty much a mirror match. So what you're really asking me is like, how do I deal with blue decks' defensive capabilities? Well, I guess I'll add that the tips, since this video is about this podcast is about Hatchhyack. I try to get my opponent. It's hard to get my opponent to use their negates early game, like their Senzu Bean, Dimension Magic, blah blah blah, all their usual toys early game, because, you know, I can't. I don't start off turn 1, turn 2 immediately, or at least with the leader, I don't immediately start applying pressure to my opponent. But turn 1, turn 2, your opponent's not going to be that defensive anyway. So turn 3 is, you know, once you awaken, right? If you're going the awaken route, is when you'll start applying pressure. And your opponent will try to be defensive in that regards, but you always assume that your opponent can negate your attacks, so don't go all in on your attacks, right? Use your leader to attack your opponent's leader as much as possible. Remember, it's 20k when it's swinging, so try to use your leader to force them negates, you know, to reduce your opponent's defenses, you know, attack. You know, if they have unisons that have blocker, you know, gotta knock off the markers, gotta get the unison off the board, right? Try your best to do that. And so there's that. So the thing is, you just gotta break down your opponent's defenses. You break down the defenses, wither it down. Remember, you know, you have the advantage that your leader is more defensive because your leader reduces your opponent's battle cards. And you know, inherently you're constantly on defense with Hatchhyack. So you kind of have to knock away, you know, chip away at your opponent's defenses when you're playing against blue. Most other colors, they're not as defensive, so you don't have to chip away at defense. You just gotta keep your defenses up and just swing away at your opponent, and, you know, and some hits will land. But that's just a basic, you know, understanding of Hatchhyack. And you know your matchup, like your matchup against blue is like, yeah, it's essentially a mirror match. You're trying to get to the point where your opponent runs out of defense first than you do. So you're trying to out tempo your opponent, right? You're outlast them. You're trying to outgrind them. So mill is another way. So if you're having trouble getting past your opponent's defense, mill. Like couple of decks, I think there was like a Bardic deck that I played against once with a Hatchhyack deck, and it was very defensive. Like, I'm like, damn, this it feels like I'm playing against Hatchhyack, because we're stopping each other's attacks so much, and it's like no one's getting an attack through to the leader. We're stopping each other's attacks. So you know, since my deck is a 60 card deck, is bigger, right? My deck is bigger. That's what she said. My deck is bigger than my opponent's. By default, my opponent is more likely to deck out before me because of that. Then there's the fact that if you have cards in your deck that help you mill your opponent, you know, you add a couple tech cards in your deck that help you mill your opponent when you attack or when you activate an effect or something. Like Oceanus, really great. I'm like, yep, she's an auto-included in Hatchhyack because of the fact that one, she negates an attack, second, she's a blocker, so she has the potential of stopping 2 attacks. You always want the ability to at least try to stop 3 attacks a turn, right? So every card you use should have the potential of stopping 2 or more attacks. That's why I use Deadly Defender. That's why, because Deadly Defender, if I combo, right, at least 1 card, you know, try to keep it on the board, you know, a little longer, it can potentially stop 2 attacks. It can absorb 2 attacks. Then Oceanus, you know, negating attack and being a blocker can potentially stop 2 attacks. She has the Floodgate ability, you know, where she could make it where your opponent has to mill 4 cards to attack, so that could help you mill your opponent out if your opponent attacks, right? So if your opponent decides to take the risk of attack, you know, because they're trying to deal you damage, you have that, you know, so that milling can come in handy. If you use Sin Shinron, he's nice because he's a barrier blocker, he's double strike, and he has deflect and stuff like that, so you don't have to worry about like God Stealing Trunks, Charismatic and Frieza. You don't have to worry about your opponent stealing it with Heroine's Lineage. So many reasons to play that 4-drop Sin Shinron. Like I said, 20k you know, blocker. It's a double strike, so you can use it as a finisher. So you can use it as a weapon, but you could also use it as a shield. So it's a great card. It has Spirit Boost, so you can use the Spirit Boost ability to either dual attack, you know, attack a double strike twice at your opponent on your turn, and then block twice on your opponent's turn. It's just a great tool. It's a great card. It definitely, people should definitely consider it for Hatchhyack. So that's the thing, right? And you know, just even playing battle cards that have the effect that when you play them, you can warp your opponent's battle cards. That way, when you play, you put something on the board, your opponent loses something. So you're always, that's board control. You're always making sure you have stuff on the board to use against your opponent, and your opponent doesn't. So you always want to remove their stuff, get rid of their unisons, get rid of their battle cards all day, every day, especially anything that can attack more than once, obviously. And blockers, you know, you don't want them, you know, stopping your attacks from going through, right? And just go from there. And hopefully you resource them, right? Hopefully you're not comboing, right? So every time you attack with your leader, every time you use your unisons to draw, your hand's just getting thicker and thicker. It's not getting smaller, you know, because you're not wasting resources to defend, right? You know, by comboing, for example, you're saving up resources, and a lot of the cards you use can do more than one thing. You know, you can block 2 attacks or 3 attacks. You know, that type of deal. So as a Hatchhyack player, you have obviously the best platform. That's why I look at Hatchhyack as a platform. You have the best platform to build your strategy off of, your game plan, you know, to build your Fortress of Solitude, right? Your Tower of Babel, whatever, right? Whatever you want to call it. Something I'll say this because no one will know this. But this is what I always think. I always think that a lot of my decks, especially the leaders that are very defensive, the strategy is it's camping. I put it like that. For those who play shooting games, you understand the concept of camping, right? And that's essentially what I do with most of my decks. My Hatchhyack deck is a camp deck. My Bulma deck is a camp deck. I'm trying to make a Jiren deck into a camp deck. My Zamasu deck is a camp deck. What else do I have as a camp deck? Trying to think. I think those are the only ones that I have, like, there are camp decks. I mean, there are other defensive leaders that could be used for the camp strategy, right? Camping. So that's essentially what it is, right? Hatchhyack, I use it for camping. Bulma, I use for camping. Zamasu, set 2 Zamasu specifically. I don't want people to think it's a different Zamasu. Set 2 Zamasu is the one that you awaken, and every time you take damage, you mill cards from the top of your deck instead of taking damage. So that's, you know, camping, right? I use that as my defense. I use that as my cover while I'm attacking my opponent from that defensive position, right? camping from a safe space, right? So safe space, camping, whatever you want to call it, and that's the strategy. So it's not rocket science. I don't have to play test, Hatchhyack, right? To play Hatchhyack, it's Hatchhyack. It essentially plays itself, right? So to speak. I don't have to do much when it comes to Hatchhyack. Just like I don't have to do much when it comes to Boma. I don't have to do too much when it comes to Set 2 Zamasu. I just gotta have, good cards, good strategy, right? Like the idea is always to speed up the process of you getting to the end game, right? To winning. Boma typically, I gotta get to like turn 5 or 6. Typically to try to burn my opponent for game. I would like to do it sooner. I would like to try to burn for game as soon as turn 4 at least, right? So that way she could be at least a 4-turn kill deck. It's not impossible, obviously. If I put a little aggro into Boma, like turn 1, turn 2, I tend to try to go aggro with her, and then turn 3 and above, I go defense with her. I know it's a lot of players when they play Boma, they immediately start off being defensive. They immediately start negating and blocking, comboing, doing everything turn 1, turn 2. It's like, okay, you're wasting a lot of resources. You're better off letting your opponent hit the leader. Let the opponent hit your leader, plus the first 2 turns. Then on turn 3 and above, start playing defensive, dropping your topos, right? Dropping your your Videls, your other negates, and if you play Napa super combo, then combo and play him as a blocker, blah blah blah, all that good stuff, right? And then eventually burn your opponent for game. She's a really good leader because she untaps 2 energy, so you can use the hit, lightning fast hit strategy, because once you evolve hit, you deal 2 damage, so you can go that route. Definitely revisiting that strategy of hit. I'm trying to make him hit more, right? I have, there's a strategy called after him, which is hit and win. It's kind of like the hit and run, the term hit and run, hit and win. So the idea is that I'm using hit to win the game, right? And the goal is to deal 6 damage to my opponent, right? So they have 2 life left, and then evolve hit and deal 2 damage and win that way. So hit and win, right? So that's a strategy. Just based off of that 1 card alone, there's a strategy. I am trying to revitalize a 5-drop Gotenks. It's a Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks Ghost Warrior attack or something like that. Haven't seen that card in a while, but it's a 5-drop. You play it, you make 3 tokens. If your hand size is 4 or less, him and the tokens get double strike. So essentially you have 4 attackers with double strike. 3 of them 15Ks and then a 20K. So, but if you have 4 cards in your hands, right, you can just combo a 5K or super combos if you have 4 super combos in your hand, right, and combo super combos, right, for each attack, and just power them up that way, right? Boom, combo, power up, boom, combo, right? And just easily get them to 20 plus power per swing. And, if your opponent only has 2 life, the likelihood of them stopping all 4 attacks is not that likely. Is it possible? I'll tell you one little story. My friend did survive one time against that board. But mostly, anytime I play him and I drop it, drop that card, he loses instantly. Sometimes he'll just scoop and not even bother trying to try to stop my attacks. Once I play it, pretty much his game. And but one time he did manage to survive, and then ironically he played his copy, his Super Saiyan Gotenks, and came at me double strike. So that was kind of cool. I've played it on untap, a couple of times, and every time I played it, it was it was very important, very strong. But there was one incident where somebody didn't discard for dormant potential, and I noticed it. They didn't discard for it at all, and I took advantage of it, right? The fact that he didn't activate the effect at all, because he thought I probably didn't have anything, and then I dropped the Gotenks, and now I have my win count. Right now I have 8 damage on board that I can swing at my opponent. My opponent only had like 2 life or something like that at the time. Even if he had 4 life, I have more than enough to take him down, right? But then he wanted to claim that he did discard, and then somebody in the chat was saying, yeah, he did discard, but I was recording and I looked in the log, there was no discard. There was no card going from his hand into the drop area after he played the dormant potential on the log, so he didn't discard. The log untap would have said he did, but he didn't. And then I re-looked at the video really closely, and yeah, he didn't. And he claimed, oh, I discarded this Goten card. No, that's the card you used to combo. You combo that card trying to out combo one of my attacks, which you succeeded in out comboing it. But then I attacked with something else. I think what I had was something that had dual attack. So I attacked, he out comboed. I restood, I attacked again, and then that's when he played the card. He played a dormant potential, but didn't discard a card for that. And then I was like, well, I'm going for game now because he didn't. I expected him to play dormant potential and discard and have the ability to prevent me from attacking him that turn for game. But when he didn't discard, I was like, oh, I got game. So I took advantage of it. But then, you know, the bullshit of saying that they, you know, he did discard, but he actually didn't. And then I have, you know, I saw the video footage of it and stuff like that. Either I have the gameplay online, you know, pointing out that, you know, he didn't discard or something, or I just decided like it's not even that deep, you know. I don't care. It was just play testing. If somebody wants to win so bad and they don't want to take an L so bad, all right, so be it. Take your fake victory. Because I don't care. That those nothing to gain from me winning or even losing. So it's like it didn't matter. But unfortunately, for some people, it matters. They take it way too serious. They're like, okay, it was just a game. Untap, everything on Untap is just play testing. And we're playing for fun. We're playing, you know, to improve ourselves as players of the game. And again, it's just a game. But some people, they take it too far. Take it too serious. You know, for them losing is the end of the world. The funny thing is, they act like it's the end of the world when they lose, but it's like when you win, you don't really get much of anything except the enjoyment and the happiness of knowing you won. But that quickly goes away, quickly fades, and now it's like, okay, now what I'm gonna do? I'm bored. Oh, let me play again, so you can try to get the thrill of winning again, like it's a drug. And that's it. You don't get anything. If you go to a tournament and win a prize or something, you know, like, oh, I won this prize card. So now it's a symbol of that time that I played the game with a whole bunch of people. It's like, yeah, that matters, but it doesn't matter if you win or lose on Untap or whatever. Some people just have issues. For some people, I guess playing card games is just a way to, you know, feel like a winner, I guess, or to escape, you know, the poor life decisions they made in life, where their life is not as great as it could be because they make bad decisions. But apparently winning at card games makes it all better, I guess. I teach their own, you know. I'm just good at card games, which is why I play them, which is why I enjoy them. Deck building, definitely one of my favorite parts of card games, is the ability to create. And creating based off of experience and knowledge, like knowing how the game works, like, and figuring out like, oh, here's a really good strategy, here's a good way to win the game. You know, first 4 damage is the easiest, the next 2 requires a little bit of effort, you know, and the last 2, you know, it's the hardest, but it's not impossible, so you just gotta have a strategy for it, right? And, you know, burn is one way. Another way you can win is through mill, right? Of course, attacking, you know, and dealing your opponent battle damage is the way of winning, obviously. And you know, that's it. Once you get the hang of those 3, burn, damage, you know, battle damage, and mill, once you get really good at those 3 things, then your chances of winning are largely increased. most people play hoping to win. They hope they win. They don't actually have a plan to win. They don't have a strategy to win. They don't have it where like, oh, once I get to turn 5 and play this one card, I win. They don't have that. I do when I build decks and I play decks. I have that idea that I built a deck to have those cards that's like, yes, once my opponents have 1 life, I'll play this 1 card and I'll win right there and then, right? And the goal, and when you play, is to achieve that goal. Once you achieve it, you win. If you don't achieve it, it's because either A, your opponent's stopping you, B, you didn't draw the win con, right? You didn't win the card you needed to win, or C, you're really bad, and for some reason, even though you have the card to win and you're in the right position to win with it, for some reason you didn't win. That's a you thing. That's not a, oh, the deck's built wrong or whatever, or the deck wasn't play tested enough. No. That's on you for not, putting in the extra effort to A, use the win con that was obviously available, or B, having a win con in the first place. You should always have 1 or 2 or 3 different win cons in your deck. So always try to have more than 1 strategy that can lead to victory, is what I'm saying. So have multiple win cons. Know how you're going to win, when you're going to win, right? Pre-plan. That way, when you're playing, all your decisions you make are based off of that plan, that strategy. Instead of you just, all right, time to play, and okay, against this deck, I'm going to play this way. Against that deck, I'm going to play that way, blah, 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 trying to switch up. You're trying to, figure out the meta, as it were. It's like, no. Come up with a way, figure out the game, figure out a way to beat the game, and then when you play, try to do that. Try to beat the game while your opponent's in your way. Your opponent is an obstacle. Your opponent is trying to distract you from winning by playing battle cards, by countering, by, negating your attacks, by out-comboing. Like, that's your opponent's job, is to distract you from winning. But you're supposed to already know how you're going to win and focus on getting there as soon as possible. That's why I focus on attacking leader first, as it were. I focus on attacking my opponent's leader. Every chance I get to deal damage to my opponent, the better. If my opponent has effects that makes them take a life take a life to activate effects, great. I want that. I want my opponent to do that. I shouldn't be playing leaders and cards that make me lose life, or says take a life in order to do stuff. Obviously, life is precious, especially in this game, right? Since we only have 8 life, Magic has 20 life, so I could spare some life in Magic, but in Super, I shouldn't be taking 4, 6 damage, 7 damage easily. I should be protecting my life, so I definitely shouldn't be taking a life a turn. That's ridiculous. That's making my opponent's life easier. That's every time I take a life for an effect, that's essentially my opponent successfully dealing me damage. That's my opponent just getting that much closer to winning, and you shouldn't be doing it. But oh well, to each their own. Play however way you want, but I'm just saying, the way I play is I want my opponent to lose, to run out of cards in their life area. I don't want to lose a lot of cards in my life area. And that's the end of the podcast.